This story invites you to dive into the harsh everyday life of a medieval coachman whose existence is an endless chain of mud, pain, injustice, and despair. In a detailed, ironic, and grim style, you'll follow the protagonist through an ordinary day, from the grueling awakening to the hopeless evening. There are no romantic nights or heroic adventures here, only a realistic, merciless portrayal of how difficult, dangerous, and exhausting life was for an ordinary person in the Middle Ages. But before you get comfortable, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from and what time it is there. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us. Now, make yourself comfortable. We're about to begin. You wake up before dawn, your eyes slowly adjusting to the familiar gloom of the stable. It's dark, cold, and humid, the perpetual state of the miserable place you call your home. The air is thick with the mingling scents of wet straw, horses, manure, and something vaguely rotten. A chill runs through you, creeping beneath your threadbare blanket and penetrating your bones, a cruel reminder of the harshness of your daily life. You groan quietly, aware that even the softest complaints will only echo back from the old crumbling walls. Stretching slowly, you feel a sharp pain in your back and shoulders. Sleeping atop hay may sound idyllic to some fool who romanticizes rural simplicity, but for you, it's torture. The hay is always damp, its prickly stalks crawling with lice and fleas that feast on your flesh every night. You scratch a fresh bite on your arm, resigning yourself to another day of itching and discomfort. Your clothes lie in a heap nearby, perpetually damp, crusted with mud, and smelling of sweat and horsehair. You pull on your coarse linen shirt, which feels like sandpaper against your already irritated skin. Your trousers and coat follow, their fabric heavy and cold. The leather boots, barely holding together, are stiffened from constant exposure to moisture and dirt. You force your feet into them, feeling the familiar, squelching unpleasantness of dried mud cracking against your skin. You exit the stable, greeted immediately by the icy mist of the early morning. Outside, the yard is a patchwork of mud and puddles, an endless landscape of filth churned up daily by wagons, horses, and countless trudging feet. Each step threatens to trap your boot, forcing you to wrench your legs free, adding yet another layer of grime to your already mud-caked garments. At the far end of the yard, your horses are waiting, silently enduring their own suffering. You approach them cautiously, whispering tired greetings as you run your fingers along their rough coats. Each animal's well-being is your responsibility. Neglect could result in punishment, or worse, dismissal. And dismissal means starvation, something you've seen too often in men less fortunate than yourself. Your examination begins methodically. You lift each hoof carefully, feeling the ache in your back intensify. Mud and debris fill the gaps in their shoes, and you patiently scrape it out with a rusted iron pick, trying to ignore the smell of decay emanating from a mild infection on one hoof. You'll need to tend to that soon, but your supplies are limited, and convincing the master to part with a few coins for ointment is another battle you dread. You check the harnesses next. The leather, worn from constant use and exposure, often chafes the animals, leaving wounds that never fully heal. You brush your fingers over old sores, feeling guilt prick at your conscience. They suffer as you do, silent and resigned, carrying burdens they never chose. The saddles, heavy and crudely crafted, rub their backs raw, but you can do little to ease their discomfort. As the first hints of dawn streak the sky in shades of gray, your tasks multiply rapidly. The master, your demanding and quick tempered employer, will soon wake, expecting everything prepared for immediate departure. He tolerates no delay, accepts no excuses. Each mistake, however minor, is met with sharp words or sharper blows. Hastily, you set about preparing the cart. Its wooden wheels creak mournfully as you inspect them, knowing any overlooked crack or weak joint could spell disaster later on. The cart, like everything else you handle, is ancient, patched together a dozen times with nails and rope. Splinters prick your fingers as you tighten the ropes that hold the cart's frame together, and your blood mingles unnoticed with the grime coating your hands. Your stomach growls, reminding you of hunger, your faithful companion. Breakfast will come later, perhaps. A stale piece of bread or some scraps from the kitchen. Nothing substantial, nothing nourishing, just enough to keep you moving through the endless drudgery of the day. For now, you ignore the hunger pangs, pushing yourself forward through sheer determination. Soon enough, you hear the familiar heavy footsteps from the house, the master descending the wooden stairs into the yard. Your heartbeat quickens. Fearful anticipation fills your chest. You glance quickly around, mentally checking everything again. One missed detail means punishment. One delay means harsh reprimands that leave bruises deeper than skin. The master arrives, his face a perpetual mask of displeasure, etched by years of anger and bitterness. He eyes you disdainfully, barking orders as if you're incapable of independent thought. With practiced obedience, you hastily saddle the horses, slipping the bits into their mouths, apologizing silently for their discomfort. Move faster, snaps the master, his voice carrying across the courtyard, startling birds into panicked flight. You hurry, fingers fumbling slightly, heart pounding painfully in your chest. You know better than to respond. Silence is your only armor. The lash of his whip has taught you this lesson thoroughly. At last, the cart stands ready. The horses paw nervously at the ground, sensing your tension. The master climbs aboard without a word of acknowledgement, already dismissing your existence as beneath notice. Your role, after all, is simple: to endure silently and fulfill your duties without question or protest. Climbing onto your small perch at the front, you grasp the reins tightly, their rough texture cutting into your already calloused palms. You glance at the horses once more, whispering quiet encouragement they cannot understand, but seem somehow to appreciate. The dawn finally breaks fully over the horizon, gray and indifferent, illuminating a landscape just as bleak and unpromising as your future. With a gentle flick of the reins, the horses begin their slow trudge forward, pulling the creaking, groaning cart into another long and exhausting day. As you pass through the gate, you risk a quick look back at the miserable stable that shelters your nightly torments, knowing you'll return to it tonight, no better rested, no less weary. As you guide your horses onto the muddy road leading away from the estate, you brace yourself for what lies ahead: endless labor, constant discomfort, and the quiet but unyielding hopelessness of your existence. Yet this is merely the start, just the first part of an endless cycle, repeating day after weary day, a story hardly worth telling, yet painfully impossible to escape. You sigh deeply, feeling the weight of this life pressing down on you with relentless force. Behind you, the master's impatience simmers audibly, reminding you there's no escape, no reprieve. You grip the reins tighter, your knuckles whitening beneath the dirt and grime, your jaw set in stubborn endurance. This is your morning, a dreadful awakening to the reality of your life as a medieval coachman, dirty, exhausting, and utterly devoid of mercy or compassion. And this is merely the beginning. You guide the creaking cart slowly onto the muddy road, the horses straining to drag the heavy, clumsy wagon through the sticky mess left by the night's relentless rain. Each step plunges the wheels deeper into the muck, forcing the animals to exert greater effort and causing their breath to steam heavily in the cold morning air. Your own breathing mirrors theirs, labored and weary, a harsh rhythm echoing the exhaustion already creeping into your bones. The master behind you mutters angrily, complaining about your sluggishness, his voice like gravel grinding against stone. His incessant grumbling becomes a familiar backdrop, no more meaningful than the drone of flies hovering around manure. You've learned long ago to listen without hearing, nodding silently at the expected intervals. Any other response risks his wrath, a cost too high to bear on a morning already thick with misery. The road winds slowly past barren fields and sparse, sickly trees, their branches skeletal against the gray sky. Farmers labor nearby, bent low under the weight of their chores, barely noticing your passing. Their lives, like yours, are marked by quiet desperation, endless toil, and an unspoken agreement not to speak of the hopelessness binding you all. You nod solemnly to a few familiar faces. They nod back, a simple acknowledgement of shared suffering. The mud grows thicker, more oppressive with every passing mile. Soon, the cart's wheels begin to sink deeper, jolting violently as they strike hidden rocks beneath the surface. Each collision sends painful vibrations through your bones, rattling your teeth and making your already aching joints protest loudly. The horses stumble and slow, forcing you off the seat to push, your boots sinking quickly to your knees in the thick, sucking mire. Your muscles scream in protest as you lean your full weight against the cart, straining to move it forward mere inches. Cold mud seeps into your boots, soaking your stockings, adding another layer of torment to your already burdensome day. Behind you, the master's curses grow louder, sharper, stabbing your ears as he berates your weakness and inefficiency. Finally, after several attempts, the cart shudders forward, jolting free from the mud with a loud sucking sound. You scramble back onto your seat, breathing heavily, sweat mixing with rainwater and grime running in filthy streaks down your face. You brush it aside impatiently, knowing such minor discomforts mean nothing in the grand scheme of your suffering. The road continues endlessly, an unchanging ribbon of filth stretching before you. Occasionally, you encounter other carts driven by men equally as ragged, their faces hollowed by hunger and exhaustion, eyes dulled by endless repetition. You exchange brief, grim nods, each acknowledging the other's quiet torment. Words are unnecessary. The silence speaks volumes. Around midday, you stop briefly by a shallow stream to water the horses. The animals drink greedily, their bodies trembling with exhaustion. You crouch beside the muddy banks, scooping water into your hands. The liquid tastes foul, gritty, and earthy, more dirt than water, but it quenches your immediate thirst, a minor victory amidst constant defeat. Your own hunger gnaws at your belly, but your meal is pitiful, a chunk of stale, rock-hard bread pulled from a filthy sack. You chew slowly, forcing each dry, tasteless bite down your throat with effort. Hunger is a constant companion, a relentless ache you've learned to ignore. It nags at you relentlessly, sapping strength and dulling thought, yet never granting mercy. You glance at the master, who dines on cold meat and cheese from a small chest. He barely acknowledges your presence, indifferent to your deprivation. As you resume your journey, your path soon intersects with busier roads near town, clogged with peasants, merchants, and livestock. The chaos of voices swells, mixing into a cacophony of angry shouts, frustrated cries, and the miserable bleating of sheep and cattle. Your horses flinch nervously, shying away from the commotion, forcing you to struggle to maintain control. The master's voice rises once again, cursing your incompetence as if you conjured the crowded streets yourself. Other carts jostle yours roughly, their drivers shouting threats and insults. The streets are narrow, and tempers flare easily. One cart brushes yours, scraping along the side with a harsh screech of wood against wood, shaking your cart violently. The horses panic briefly, forcing you to use every ounce of strength and skill you possess to calm them. Your arms ache, trembling with exhaustion, as you force them forward once more, ignoring the jeers and mocking laughter from those around you. The closer you come to the city gates, the greater the chaos becomes. Mud gives way to slick cobblestones, equally treacherous. The noise is deafening. Vendors scream out their wares, beggars plead pitifully, stray dogs bark and fight, all blending into an overwhelming symphony of misery. The air grows thick with odors, unwashed bodies, animal waste, rotting garbage, and the sharp tang of smoke from countless fires. Your cart inches forward, barely making progress through the crush of humanity. Your attention narrows to the immediate task of navigating safely, yet still the master continues his tirade, blaming you for every delay, every bump, every moment of inconvenience. You grit your teeth, absorbing his complaints, your heart a dull stone of resentment you've long since stopped examining. Eventually, you reach your destination, a crowded market square, muddy and teeming with activity. You park the cart hastily, relieved at the brief respite from movement. The master steps down, grumbling impatiently, barely noticing your exhaustion as he disappears into a tavern, leaving you to wait obediently outside. You lean against the cart, feeling your legs tremble, barely able to support your weight. Your body screams silently for rest, warmth, nourishment, simple comforts you've long since abandoned hope of enjoying. Rain begins to fall once more, gentle droplets quickly intensifying, drenching you anew. Your clothes cling heavily to your frame, water seeping down your collar, freezing against your skin. You glance around, noticing other coachmen scattered about, standing in similar poses of weary resignation. Their faces mirror yours, lined, filthy, devoid of expectation or joy. You recognize the same hopelessness that marks your own reflection. A silent camaraderie passes between you, unspoken understanding that your existence is one continuous ordeal, punctuated only by brief, meaningless moments of respite. You close your eyes briefly, allowing exhaustion to pull at your senses, tempting you to collapse where you stand. But reality intrudes sharply. The master will soon return, demanding you once again resume your burdens. With a heavy sigh, you straighten painfully, steeling yourself for the continuation of your endless day. The journey isn't over, it's merely paused, a temporary lull in your relentless existence as a medieval coachman, trapped forever in mud, shouts, and an unending, exhausting routine. You stand waiting by your cart, rain still pouring relentlessly, dripping down from the overhanging roofs and splashing onto your already soaked clothing. The cobblestones beneath your feet turn slippery, slick with mud and refuse that piles up with alarming speed in these crowded city streets. All around, life seethes chaotically, unforgiving, filthy, and seemingly indifferent to your exhaustion. People push past aggressively, shoving and elbowing, each individual absorbed in their own miseries and petty disputes. Merchants shout loudly, their voices piercing the air, competing desperately for attention in the overcrowded market. The acrid smell of sweat, garbage, and animals permeates everything, wrapping you in an inescapable cloud of filth. Each breath you take feels heavy and unpleasant, as though the city itself seeks to smother you slowly. Your cart, wedged awkwardly against the edge of the market square, becomes an obstacle to passing traffic. Pedestrians curse and complain, directing insults your way, as if you purposefully positioned yourself to inconvenience their lives. You stand silently, accepting their abuse, well aware that responding would only bring more trouble. You've learned from countless painful experiences that silence remains your best defense. Nearby, the sounds of coughing and wheezing punctuate the relentless noise. Beggars cluster together, huddled beneath dripping awnings, their bodies wrapped in rags barely distinguishable from the muck beneath their feet. Pale, gaunt faces peer out from beneath dirty hoods, their eyes vacant yet desperate, hollow reminders of the constant threat looming over every person unlucky enough to live in such squalid conditions. Your own health feels precarious, constantly threatened by the unseen illnesses floating invisibly through the damp, fetid air. Suddenly, a group of rough looking city guards forces its way through the crowd, their heavy boots splattering mud as they stride purposefully forward. People scatter hastily, eager to avoid their wrathful gaze. You tense instinctively, avoiding eye contact as they pass, knowing how easily your humble existence could be disrupted by their arbitrary decisions. One guard pauses momentarily beside your cart, eyeing it with disdain. "Move this filthy thing," he barks, spitting contemptuously near your feet. You nod obediently, biting sip your irritation. There's nowhere else to move, but you know better than to protest. Hastily, you grab the reins, coaxing your weary horses forward slightly, pushing deeper into the cramped space, hoping to blend into the crowded scenery unnoticed once more. Moments later, a wagon carrying bodies rattles past, its wheels grinding loudly against uneven cobblestones. You glance up involuntarily, immediately regretting it. Bodies lie stacked carelessly atop one another, their limp limbs jostling grotesquely with each jarring movement of the cart. Flies swarm aggressively above, indifferent to the rain, greedily feasting upon the exposed flesh. Disease runs rampant here, taking lives swiftly and without mercy. You shudder, quickly averting your gaze, silently praying to avoid such a fate, though you hold no illusions about the vulnerability of your own fragile existence. The master returns abruptly, interrupting your grim contemplation. He strides from the tavern, his face flushed from drink, eyes glazed with irritation. Without acknowledging you, he climbs roughly onto the cart, muttering incoherent insults under his breath. You move immediately, mounting your uncomfortable perch at the front, silently gripping the reins tightly in your numb hands. Navigating through the dense city crowds proves even more challenging than your entry. Narrow streets congest quickly, overflowing with carts, animals, vendors, and beggars. The horses shy nervously, ears twitching at the constant shouting, sudden movements, and unfamiliar smells assaulting their senses. Every inch forward feels like a minor victory, hard earned through painstaking effort and endless patience. A vendor's cart suddenly topples in front of you, spilling rotten vegetables and debris across the road, instantly drawing a swarm of rats. Chaos erupts immediately as people shout angrily, blaming one another, pushing and shoving violently. Your horses panic, rearing slightly, forcing you to strain every muscle to hold them steady. Sweat pours down your face, mixing with rainwater, stinging your eyes, blurring your vision momentarily. The master's voice roars angrily from behind, blaming you for the disruption as if you conjured the chaos yourself. Several minutes pass before order is restored, allowing you to inch forward once more. Your muscles ache deeply, exhaustion gripping your body like an iron fist. Every turn of the wheels demands renewed effort, every step a testament to your resilience and stubborn endurance. Eventually, you arrive at the marketplace's outskirts, closer to the city's impoverished district, a place even filthier and more miserable than your current surroundings. Here, the streets narrow further, crowded with dilapidated houses leaning precariously against one another, their walls covered in mold, their roofs barely holding together. People sit hunched in doorways, wrapped in tattered blankets, their eyes hollow and defeated. Children, emaciated and filthy, wander aimlessly, scavenging through garbage heaps in search of scraps of food. Their desperate cries echo hauntingly through the alleyways, a stark reminder of the cruelty and indifference that permeates every aspect of life here. Your heart tightens briefly with sadness before you push the feeling away, knowing you have nothing to offer them, not even a shred of comfort. You stop briefly at a crossroads, forced to wait as another cart, heavily laden with barrels of ale, maneuvers awkwardly in the cramped space. As you wait, a woman approaches timidly, her thin, trembling hands extended in silent begging. You shake your head slowly, regretfully, indicating your own empty pockets. She nods without surprise, retreating quickly into the shadows, already forgotten by the indifferent city. As the way clears, you urge your horses forward again, finally reaching a wider street. The air here smells slightly cleaner, less oppressive, though still thick with the familiar odors of poverty and decay. You breathe deeply, relieved to be free of the claustrophobic chaos of the market, at least temporarily. Yet your respite is short lived. A sharp cry rings out from nearby, followed by the unmistakable sounds of a street fight. Two men grapple fiercely, their bodies slick with mud and blood, wrestling desperately for dominance. A crowd quickly forms around them, cheering and jeering loudly, indifferent to the human suffering unfolding before their eyes. You pass quickly, forcing yourself to look away, knowing that violence here is as common as rain, inescapable and endless. Your shoulders slump forward involuntarily, weariness pressing upon you relentlessly. You've spent your entire day struggling against mud, shouts, disease, and poverty, yet your journey still feels barely begun. Ahead lies only more drudgery, more suffering, more reminders of your place at the bottom of society's cruel hierarchy. With a deep, resigned sigh, you tighten your grip on the reins, urging the exhausted horses forward, back into the city's chaos. You've accepted your role long ago, silent witness to endless misery, participant in an ongoing drama of despair, your life reduced to a series of relentless, hopeless moments that merge endlessly into one long, grim narrative. And as you continue onward through the dirty, crowded streets, you realize with grim certainty that tomorrow and every day afterward will be exactly the same. Evening approaches with slow inevitability as you guide your weary horses toward the city gates, your cart creaking rhythmically with every turn of its battered wheels. Each step forward feels heavier than the last, a testament to your bone deep exhaustion. The master sits impatiently behind you, silent for now, though you know from bitter experience that silence rarely lasts. The road leading from the city is rutted deeply, scarred by the endless passage of carts like yours. The ground, churned by rain and traffic, threatens to swallow your wheels again, and you watch anxiously as the horses struggle through deepening mud. Every muscle in your body aches from the day's labors, yet the journey home offers little hope of rest. Without warning, the cart lurches violently, accompanied by a sickening snap. Your heart sinks instantly. You stop immediately, jumping down into the mud to inspect the damage. As you feared, a wheel has broken, splintered spokes protruding grotesquely like the bones of a wounded animal. Dread pools in your chest. You know exactly what awaits you. The master erupts from his seat, red faced and furious. His voice pierces the quiet gloom of the evening, echoing sharply through the cold air. You worthless fool, he screams, his anger unchecked, irrational. Can't you do anything without ruining it? You bow your head silently, absorbing the torrent of insults and accusations. You know better than to argue. Protests only invite harsher punishments. Still, resentment coils tightly within your chest. The wheel break from age and neglect, not from your carelessness, but your innocence matters little to the master. He demands perfection, punishing imperfection swiftly and brutally. Fix it now, he roars, pacing angrily beside the cart, his gaze searing your back, or you'll feel my whip. Hands trembling slightly, you kneel in the cold mud, scrambling desperately to patch the wheel, together with rope and scraps of wood salvaged from beneath the seat. Rain resumes its merciless downpour, soaking your back, numbing your fingers as you struggle through the painful, tedious task. Minutes pass slowly, every second filled with mounting anxiety. You finally finish a crude, shaky repair, aware that it won't last long, but hoping desperately it'll hold just long enough to get home. The master climbs back aboard without acknowledgement or thanks, only a grunt of disgust. You climb into your seat again, pulling on the reins gently, urging the horses forward, praying silently to any power that might listen. Your makeshift repair creaks ominously, but holds for now, yet your relief is short lived. The city guards, always eager to enforce arbitrary rules, approach quickly from the gates. They eye you suspiciously, their glances sharp with casual cruelty. One of them, a burly, sour faced man, steps forward, his eyes narrowing. You there, he shouts. You're blocking the road. Can't you move faster? Before you can reply, the master interrupts angrily, blaming you immediately, as though you alone engineered every misfortune. The guards listen without sympathy, nodding curtly before issuing you a fine, a punishment for obstructing traffic. You accept the penalty silently, your fists clenched tightly, swallowing down bitter frustration. The guards move on, indifferent to your hardships. The master's voice resumes its tirade, harsher now, laced with disgust. I'll take the fine from your wages, he sneers, watching your shoulders slump slightly at the injustice. Maybe that'll teach you to be less careless. You nod mutely, knowing argument is futile. Injustice has long been your constant companion, punishment as predictable as sunrise. You're powerless here, trapped beneath layers of cruelty, enduring quietly because the alternative is worse. Night deepens rapidly, the fading light replaced swiftly by impenetrable darkness. The cold seeps further into your bones, your clothes heavy with mud and rainwater, your stomach gnawing painfully from hunger and fatigue. Yet trouble, it seems, rarely travels alone. One of the horses suddenly stumbles, snorting in pain, limping sharply. You halt immediately, heart sinking further. Kneeling beside the injured animal, you feel your chest tighten at the sight. A deep cut, infected and swollen, hidden beneath the mud and grime. You whisper softly to soothe the suffering beast, but inwardly despair. The master's anger over a damaged cart is nothing compared to his fury over an injured animal. He notices quickly, storming toward you, face contorted with rage. What have you done now? He demands, voice dangerously low. You speak quietly, explaining the injury, but your words fall upon deaf ears. He backhands you sharply, knocking you to your knees in the filthy mud, the blow sending stars dancing across your vision. Pain blooms hotly across your face, blood mingling with the grime as you struggle upright once more, humiliation burning brighter than physical pain. You worthless wretch, he spits venomously, voice dripping with contempt. If that horse dies, you'll pay dearly, more dearly than you imagine. Your throat tightens with fear. You know his threats are real. A horse, after all, is worth far more than your miserable life. Still, you force yourself forward, cleaning the wound as best you can with dirty water and scraps of cloth, hoping desperately to prevent infection from worsening. The horse shudders beneath your hands, its pain reflected clearly in its gentle, suffering eyes. Your heart breaks quietly, helplessly, under the unbearable weight of guilt and responsibility. At last, the master grows impatient, insisting you continue despite the horse's obvious agony. Reluctantly, you mount the cart again, guiding the wounded animal slowly forward, each step clearly causing pain. Your own heart aches with each pained step the creature takes, yet your helplessness feels absolute. Disobedience carries punishments you dare not risk. As your miserable caravan inches toward home, your mind swirls with bitterness. This endless cycle of injustice, punishments unfairly given, blame constantly shifted onto your weary shoulders, seems unbreakable. Each passing day erodes your strength, your resolve weakening under relentless cruelty. The world offers no kindness, no reprieve, only hardship layered upon hardship, each one heavier, crueler than the last. Finally, the estate looms ahead, dimly lit by a few scattered lanterns. The master dismounts immediately upon arrival, disappearing angrily into his comfortable home, leaving you to handle the damaged cart and wounded horse alone in the darkness. You stand silently, utterly drained, staring numbly at the daunting task ahead. Your body aches deeply, battered by punishment, exhaustion, and cold. Rain drips from your hair, mixing with tears of silent frustration you barely acknowledge. Yet you have no choice but to continue, patching and cleaning, caring tenderly for animals more valued than yourself, repairing equipment destined only to break again. Hours pass slowly in the painful toil, each task performed numbly, mechanically, until finally finished. Stumbling toward the stables, you collapse onto a pile of damp straw, unable to summon the strength to move further. You lie quietly, trembling slightly, eyes staring emptily into the darkness, heart hollow from endless injustice. Tomorrow will surely bring more of the same, more blame, more punishment, more cruelty inflicted casually and without remorse. Yet tonight, at least, your exhausted mind slips briefly into merciful oblivion, escaping momentarily from the endless nightmare of your daily existence, if only until dawn. You lie quietly in the shadows of the stable, sprawled across the damp, prickly straw that has become your nightly refuge. The day's trials weigh heavily upon your aching body, muscles twitching involuntarily from exhaustion. Your bones seem to hum with pain, vibrating softly beneath the surface of your bruised skin. Rain continues its relentless drumming upon the leaking roof, water dripping rhythmically through countless tiny holes, soaking into your thin blanket and trickling down your neck, a cold reminder of your misery. The stable air is thick with moisture, stale hay, manure, and decay, a suffocating cocktail you have long learned to tolerate. Rats scurry quietly in the darkness, their tiny claws scratching across the wooden beams overhead. Their presence no longer troubles you. Like everything else, they've become an accepted part of your dismal routine. You close your eyes briefly, savoring the small comfort of rest, however temporary. Yet your respite is short lived. The injured horse stirs restlessly nearby, snorting softly in pain. Your conscience gnaws relentlessly, guilt and worry pressing heavily upon your chest. Groaning quietly, you push yourself upright, joints popping painfully as you rise from the straw. Each movement feels like punishment, but responsibility compels you forward. After all, these animals suffer as much as you do, silent victims caught in the cruel machinery of your daily existence. Dragging your battered body forward, you approach the wounded creature slowly, whispering quiet reassurances to calm its agitation. Your hands tremble slightly as you gently inspect the animal's wound. It looks swollen, inflamed, worse than before. You feel dread grip your heart tightly, understanding the inevitable consequences if the horse fails to recover. You whisper apologies softly, meaningless words that do little to ease your guilt, but they're all you have to offer. You find a small bucket of stale water nearby, using a ragged cloth to wash out the injury carefully, wincing inwardly as the horse flinches beneath your touch. Your efforts feel futile, inadequate, like everything else in your life, but you persist doggedly, driven by desperation and compassion. After bandaging the wound as best you can, you stroke the animal's mane tenderly, feeling tears prick your tired eyes, born from frustration and helplessness. There's nothing more you can do. As you finish, your stomach growls loudly, an urgent reminder of your neglected hunger. You haven't eaten properly all day, your single stale scrap of bread long forgotten amidst the turmoil. Gathering your strength, you shuffle toward the servants' quarters, hoping faintly for some leftover morsel. Upon entering, you're greeted by dim, smoky candlelight and the low murmur of exhausted voices, other servants, as worn and weary as yourself. You scan the meager offerings on the battered wooden table, disappointment settling heavily in your gut. A crust of hardened bread, some watery soup that has gone cold hours ago, and a few shriveled vegetables comprise your only choices. You scoop a small portion of soup into a cracked wooden bowl, dipping your bread carefully, trying desperately to soften it enough to chew. The taste is vile, flavorless, the texture almost slimy as it slides reluctantly down your throat. You force yourself to swallow anyway, hunger overcoming disgust. Beside you, another servant, a scullery maid with hollow cheeks and eyes that speak silently of shared suffering, eats with similar resigned detachment. Your eyes meet briefly, exchanging a glance filled with unspoken understanding. No words pass between you. None are necessary. Finishing your pitiful meal quickly, you rise, unwilling to linger. Returning slowly to your makeshift bed in the stable, you find the horses settled, their quiet breathing a soothing, familiar rhythm. You sink onto the damp straw once more, pulling the thin, wet blanket around your shoulders, though it provides little warmth against the biting chill. Your body shivers uncontrollably, cold seeping relentlessly through your skin, deep into your aching bones. Sleep comes reluctantly, teasing you with brief moments of drowsiness, only to vanish abruptly, replaced by worries and intrusive thoughts. You replay the day's injustices in your mind, the master's angry voice, the unfair fines, the injured horse, the merciless guards, each image vivid, painful, impossible to escape. Your fists clench helplessly, frustration tightening your jaw, yet you remain silent. What good would protest do? Who would listen, even if you dared to speak? The hours crawl by slowly, the night stretching endlessly, punctuated by the monotonous drip of water from the leaking roof and the rustling of rodents in the shadows. Occasionally, muffled sobs drift from the servants' quarters nearby, evidence that your suffering isn't unique. You're part of an invisible army of forgotten souls, each enduring quietly, hopelessly trapped in an existence devoid of kindness, justice, or relief. You stare blankly into the darkness, despair settling heavily upon your chest. Each day blends seamlessly into the next, a continuous cycle of hardship, labor, and quiet humiliation. There's no reason to expect tomorrow or any day afterward to differ. Your role is fixed, your fate sealed by birth and circumstance. Hope has become an alien concept, something glimpsed briefly in others' lives, but never your own. Your mind drifts into memories of childhood, distant, faded images of brief happiness, carefree moments of laughter and play before reality crushed your innocence. Those memories now seem unreal, fragments of another life, a cruel reminder of what you've lost. The thought makes your throat tighten, but you swallow quickly, pushing emotions away, burying them deep beneath layers of practiced resignation. Outside, dawn approaches reluctantly, faint streaks of gray light filtering weakly through gaps in the walls. The horses begin to stir gently, signaling the end of your brief, restless respite. Soon the master will awaken, demanding, impatient, ready to heap fresh abuses and impossible demands upon your weary shoulders. You feel dread rise sharply within you, mingling bitterly with resignation. You know precisely what awaits you, a repeat of yesterday's pain, a cruel, relentless cycle you lack the power to change. Slowly, with an effort born of necessity, you force your aching body upward, preparing yourself mechanically for the inevitable duties that await. Your clothes cling uncomfortably to your damp skin, your muscles protesting every movement, yet you continue anyway, driven solely by habit and necessity. The injured horse looks slightly better in the dim morning light, though you remain cautious in your hope. You stroke its mane tenderly one last time, whispering quiet encouragement, knowing you'll both endure another day of silent suffering together. You share a bond deeper than words, forged from mutual hardship, an understanding that neither of you has the power to change the cruel world around you. Gathering your few tools, you step reluctantly into the gray dawn, breathing deeply, steeling yourself for another endless cycle of toil and injustice. Your life is defined by repetition, weariness, and resignation. Yet somehow, despite everything, you continue forward, surviving another day, another week, another year, until finally, inevitably, your body fails entirely, granting the only relief you'll ever know. And as you trudge forward into the waiting day, you accept this fate quietly, without protest or tears. Such is the lot of a coachman, trapped eternally in brief rest and endless despair, living unseen, suffering quietly, until forgotten completely by history itself.